what else did you see in the second half? Let's start with Embiid to help turn things around, because some of it was I thought he was a little more patient and willing to let others win the game and not forcing things.
Atlanta on a 14-2 run since I yelled at them. That's all right. They're still
For
frauds.
being down 20?
They're still frauds. I don't care what they do this game. They're frauds.
Yeah. They have to play the Celtics, and both of those teams are going to get swept.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they have to play Miami, and they're going to lose.
Sorry, I was watching the game.
Yeah.
What was your question?
My bad. Embiid 23. Yeah. I thought the thing that stood out to me in the second half, because this really was about the second half and them coming back and winning. We'll get to the negative stuff later, or maybe even tomorrow.
Spent a good hour and a half complaining about the negative stuff.
Live, right? Yeah. So what I thought, his patience and willingness to allow others to beat the Miami Heat tonight was the main thing for me from him in the second half.
Yeah, I don't think he forced it. If anything, I don't really think he forced it in the first half. I think part of the problem he had in the first half was that he was so methodical that he gave someone like Jimmy Butler a chance to come from, across the court and pick him off from behind. I thought, he did a much better job of not, like we said during the live stream, there's like an internal clock that has to go. And I think he did a better job of that in the second half. A lot of people will bring up the fact that he didn't look himself, and he didn't look himself. Like athletically, he does not look like he's back to 100%. He might not be back to 80%. And I'm sure we will dissect that in the coming days and weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still be a very good, even if, I don't know if he's injured per se. It just looked like that 4 days off or whatever he had, 5 days off, impacted his rhythm, impacted his lift, impacted his conditioning a little bit. It doesn't sound like it should, but we've always seen when Embiid takes a week off, he doesn't come back playing his best basketball. The great thing is they got this win even without it. You have a chance now to have a 7-game series where every game, it's important, don't get me wrong, but you have a chance to bounce back if there is a tough one in there. I'm not all doom and gloom on the way Embiid looked. I think this is a team that can cause him problems because of the way they send help, and I think he just looked very, very out of rhythm. But I do think he was more in control in the second half. Both he and Maxey were more in control. I don't think Maxey turned the ball over once in the second half after having just a bunch of really concerning first half turnovers. I know we only ended up with 3, but for Maxey, 3.5 is and a lot of them were really bad turnovers. So I think both of them did a better job of at least taking care of the ball. And it's like we were saying yesterday, like we were saying in the pregame show today, if you don't turn the ball over, if you don't give Miami pick sixes, I think Miami was up like 18-2 or something on points off turnovers at one point. When you stop doing that, Miami's going to have trouble scoring against a set defense. And I'm real interested to see, afterwards when I start going through the stats and rewatching the games, what Miami's half-court points per possession were, because I feel like they really, really struggled. And at the beginning of the game, it was missed shots. But even so, I don't feel like they ever got into a great rhythm, except when they were getting out in transition, except when they were getting those pick sixes that Embiid and other players were gift wrapping them. So I give them all credit for cleaning that up in the second half. I think once they did that, it positioned them to where they could go on a run, even if they never really shot the lights out of the ball, although they made certainly some shots. Batum, a big driving force in that. But they just executed a lot better against that Miami zone, and even against Miami's half-court offense. Like they looked like they finally calmed down, whereas the first half they were second-guessing everything.
Yeah, man, and they really were. And he did pick up his awareness in the second half, where it cut down on the turnovers. The same for Tyrese Maxey, but they needed him to, make sure that he got those buckets in close and finished those. To make sure he made that extra pass. There was a pass there where Kelly Oubre got the and one at the rim. No, he didn't get the and one. He got the dunk, and that put them up 5. And then you had Eric Spoelstra call timeout because Embiid caught it. Oftentimes, you all watch it, and I know you do. You watch it, and he likes to throw a pass where he feels like he can just put enough strength and hit that pass across his body. So when we talk about in football, quarterbacks can't throw across their body. That's a no-no. In the NBA, sure, there are cross-court passes, but there's certain ones you want to make. And even with Embiid, he has to turn and square his shoulders. When we say the same thing about shooting in the NBA or quarterbacks in the NFL, throwing the way that they do, even if they're on the move, square your shoulders and get the ball out. He turned and pivot beyond the three-point line, hit Kelly Oubre because he allowed himself to turn and put Number one, he has pivot foot in front of him. I mean, his pivot foot in the back and his strong foot in front, and to make that pass. And it was a tight window that he had to get that pass in there for Kelly Oubre, but he was willing to let it go, let it rip, and find him underneath that basket for that finish in close. And I have to give him credit for that, because for so much, and there are people in the chat still coming at him, and I understand that. But giving him credit for altering shots at the rim, getting a couple of those rebounds there on the defensive end where Miami was so good at getting those second chance opportunities, he did that. And if I'm not mistaken, as I look at the box score quickly here, for what he ended up with, I'll give him and Nick Nurse this. He had, on the night, 3 personal fouls he ended up with on the evening. I thought he had 4. And I got to give him credit for picking up those 2 early, staying in the game, not picking up another one, and then later on only getting 1 more to close out the basketball game, because that could have been a world of trouble for Nick Nurse and Joel Embiid. And Derek did mention Embiid is typically very good playing under that duress there, under that stress and that pressure of going out there with those fouls and not picking up that extra one, then forces him to the bench.
Yeah. And like I said,
so I give him credit for that too.
Well, yeah. And like I said this during a live show, I think Embiid generally does a good job of managing his fouls. When he gets into foul trouble, he knows how to play while still having an impact on the game, but backing off enough where he's not on the bench, because Embiid, even if he's only playing, 80% defense, is still the best defender that they have, certainly the best rim protector and the best deterrent. So that's something he's historically done. Something that used to drive me absolutely nuts with Doc. He would have an automatic 3 fouls when you're out in the first half. Yep. You don't need to do that. Let your stars, make that imprint. And the best way to have your stars in the game is to have them in the game. I know that sounds ridiculous, but a lot of coaches, when they have that automatic take them out, they are guaranteeing the very thing that they are trying to prevent, and that your star isn't going to play enough minutes to impact the game. So I give Nick Nurse credit for doing that. I give Joel Embiid credit for not picking up those fouls. I think that was important.
We all silly like the mayor.